like to yield 10 minutes to my colleague from New York, a member of the Intelligence Committee, roughly 1 minute for every foot of snow that his community has recently received.
Gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Chairman. Very roughly, you owe me
Excuse me, for 10 minutes.
Thank the gracious speaker. Listening to this debate tonight, it becomes obvious that kind of like life itself, those of us in Congress have moments of high drama and great importance, and by any measure, the debate this evening and tomorrow and the days that follow, and most importantly, the vote that will attend it is just such a moment. I would observe, Madam Speaker, in the now nearly 231 years that this great union has endured, this House has encountered few sessions demanding greater honesty, greater selflessness, and greater wisdom than that of occasions of war. And as I said, this is such a time. But this debate really does stand alone. It's unique over the more than 2 centuries and 3 decades of our history, because from my study, at no time in this nation's history has a Congress considered the matter before us this week. The question of shall we resolve in a non-binding resolution that this House disagree with a mission duly designated by the constitutional authority vested in the President as Commander-in-Chief in the conduct of a war that this same Congress in an earlier session has in fact expressly endorsed. I've listened today with great interest. I have enormous respect for all members on both sides of the aisle, but I've heard about how wherever they are, many members tonight will go to the well when they ultimately vote and try to send the President a message, try to signify to the administration that this war has not been conducted in the appropriate way. It has not achieved the objectives that we all felt were possible and in fact absolutely necessary at its outset. I would say, Madam Speaker, I understand that perspective. Not only understand it, in many ways I strongly share that perspective, but I have to argue the fact of the matter is, for all of the good intentions we have here tonight, the negative aspect of such an action is going to far outweigh whatever good it might attempt to achieve. The reality is, if this message is heard at all at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, it's going to speak in whispers. But in other lands, in other continents, in other cities, far, far away, when this resolution comes before us, and if it is passed, it is going to crash like thunder. In places like Ramadi and Basra, from Baghdad and beyond, friend and foe alike are going to hear something far different than what we intend. They're going to hear that through this vote we have abandoned the Iraqi people. They're going to hear that America has forsaken this struggle. They will hear that we disavow our military objective in Baghdad really before it has meaningfully begun. And most importantly, in the shadows where our enemies lurk, in places like Tehran and Damascus, the message will fail where its authors intend, but it will succeed very, very mightily where they wish it would not. Because, Madam Speaker, for all of the good intent embodied in this proposal, it will not bring a single soldier home sooner. This vote, no matter what the tally, no matter what this board shows as to green and red at the end of the day, will not shorten this conflict by a single month, not by a week, not by a day. It won't change the course of the single battle. It won't even alter a pebble that lies on the battlefields in which those struggles will be fought. It will, however, say to the insurgents, the sodomists, the radical Islamic militants and their patrons that time is on their side. It will say that America has no stomach for this fight. And somewhere in a cave in Afghanistan or in a hut on the Afghan-Pakistan border, Osama bin Laden is going to smile. his words of a failure of America will be that much closer to reality. As he has said, and I quote, "The epicenter of these wars in Baghdad's the seat of the caliphate rule. They keep reiterating that success in Baghdad will be success for the United States, failure in Iraq, and failure of the U.S. Their defeat in Iraq will mean defeat in all their wars and the beginning of the receding of their Zionist crusader tide against us." End quote. Those are bad messages, Madam Speaker, but I would suggest respectfully to all of my colleagues, or all the wrong messages this resolution will send to our enemies, nothing it conveys will be more devastating than what it says to our troops, to our military, those brave men and women in uniform who have answered the call to arms issued not by some ephemeral entity, but by us, by this Congress. And how do we say through the resolution we're considering here today, we support your needs, but we reject your mission. We allow for your deployment, but we shun the premise of your departure. And what do we say to the wife or husband? How do we respond to the father or the mother or the loved one of the next warrior lost in battle who asks, why did you oppose to that resolution the job they were sent to pursue, but did absolutely nothing from preventing them from going from the outset? That is the tyranny, and I have to say it, Madam Speaker, that's the folly of the resolution before us for all its lack of practical result. For the fact that this resolution will do absolutely nothing. Never has this Congress in its history of war considered an action of such dramatic consequence. Now, it's said during the Civil War that the great Southern General Robert E. Lee was really tired, and I think we can all relate to this, of the criticism, the second guessing that was directed at his leadership through the major newspapers of his time. And he observed, apparently, all my best generals have become journalists. Today, tonight, I think it can be fairly said of some, apparently all of our best generals have become congressmen. My colleagues, we are not generals. The Constitution of this great nation does not provide for 535 commanders-in-chief. Yet that is the reality lost in the proposal that we're considering this night and this week. But I would suggest, instead of being diminished by that fact, instead of being lessened by what we are not, we need to be empowered by what we are. And I say to my colleagues tonight, on both sides of the aisle, we indeed have a grave responsibility in this matter. But it doesn't lie in non-binding resolutions that send wrong messages to our troops and the absolutely wrong messages to our enemies. It rests in the authorities vested in us by the Constitution of this great land. The power to fund or not all matters of government, most especially war. Like all of us here tonight, I want this war to conclude. I represent the 10th Mountain Division, most deployed division in the United States Army. I was there 3 weeks ago. I know the pain. I know the suffering. And like all of you, I am frustrated by the path we have traveled to this point. And I'm troubled by the course that apparently lies ahead. And we must have a different approach. One that especially places responsibility for success where it rightfully lies. And I've heard my colleagues tonight speak about that with the Iraqi people. I propose an amendment to the supplemental appropriations bill that'll just do that. Require the Iraqis to step forward, to stand up, to stop the talking, and to begin to act. It'll fully fund the needs of our troops and provide for us, the Congress, our rightful role, and expedited an opportunity to review the Iraqis' effort and to judge the progress of this new mission in Baghdad. These things have to be done, but this resolution, in my judgment, is what must decidedly not. This weekend I took the time to reread John F. Kennedy's Pulitzer Prize winning work, Profiles in Courage. And in those pages our martyred president spoke, and I quote, in no other occupation but politics is it expected that a man will sacrifice honor, prestige, and his chosen career on a single issue. My friends, this is such a moment. I accuse nobody in this chamber, Madam Speaker, of any kind of transgression. Honorable people, good people, will disagree, as I expect they will on this and other days. But I do plead that every member in this House vote on this resolution not for themselves, not for gain or posture through politics, not because of their alleged attention to public opinion, because it's right. We can do better, we must, but this resolution is not the path to that objective. Thank you, Madam Speaker.